Hey. Welcome back, Equity Warriors. Thanks for tuning in. We are coming to you live for the very first time. So asking for a little patience and grace. We've already had one mishap this morning, but not to worry if you missed the live stream. You will always get edited content via your regular audio podcast platform, as well as my YouTube channel. And if you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel at Almitra Berry, go ahead and do that now. Just click on the subscribe button and hit that notifications button. After today, live stream will be the first release of all content. We will literally get to watch the sausage get made, and you missed the first episode of that. So you don't want to miss it. My guest today is a YouTube superstar. Known as your Destiny Cheer Captain, Lakeisha Covert serves the community as an entrepreneur, an author, educator, executive coach, and certified life coach. She's an award-winning educator who has mentored, coached, and served the community nationwide for 25 years. As an educator, she taught for 11 years and served as a principal for 5, successfully leading 2 schools in Prince George's County, Maryland, and Alexandria, Virginia. She currently serves as deputy chief at a nonprofit organization, which is how I came to meet this wonderful woman. In 2014, she founded a nonprofit called the Christmas Experience, Inc., which serves children and families in need during the holidays. For 10 years, this nonprofit has served hundreds of children and their families through partnership organizations such as Target Stores, Lifestyles of Southern Maryland, and local schools. In addition to serving the community, she is also a best-selling author of Try Success, It Won't Bite, How to Live Your Best Life Through 10 Principles of Self-Excellence. This book was inspired by her love of life coaching others as a certified professional coach. She is a success coach who specializes in life planning, personal growth, and destiny fulfillment. In 2020, she founded Success My Way Academy, a life coaching mastermind course that moves people from their dreams to their destiny. Her life's mission is to serve others with all her heart, mind, and soul, spreading love and teaching destiny fulfillment throughout her life and actions. This coming week, she will successfully defend her dissertation and receive her doctorate in leadership from the University of the Cumberlands. And she did not know I was going to share that. But I know that she will be successful. And on Tuesday night, I have the honor of calling her doctor. So Lakeisha, my friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for that gracious introduction. Oh, wow. When you put it all together, it sounds like a lot.
It does. It is a lot. I know when people read my bio, I'm always like, I don't know who that person is, but yeah, I guess that is all factually correct. So heads up to our audience. We've got thunderstorms on Lakeisha's end. So we've had a little bit of technical difficulties this morning. She's a little pixelated, but we're going to hope that at least we have some video the whole time to go along with the audio. But no matter what, we're pushing through this. Today, we're here to talk about the intersectionality of what Lakeisha, future Dr. Covert, does and what I do. So especially for educators, how coaching for destiny and being an equity-minded educator will really create a new superpower in a person. So we're going to start just at, understanding what is coaching and success, because I imagine that everyone has a different definition of success. So Lakeisha, what's yours?
Yes, thank you so much. The word success has just been following me. It's in my book. It's in my academy. I can't get rid of it because I redefined it. For most people, success is about the cars and the money and everything, but not really. For me, success is inner success. Do you have peace? Are you happy? Do you live a life of joy? Are you productive? And do you have freedom? That's my definition of success. If you have those things in here, then it doesn't matter what material things you have or what's happening, your temporary circumstances, it will not negate you being a successful person. So that's why I named my business Success My Way, because for everybody, success is different. What gives me peace and joy does not give you peace and joy. What gives you peace and joy? I want to go there and help you with that success your way.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't think I had success until, by a lot of other people's definition of success, I was successful, right? I had a good education. I had an excellent job. I worked in corporate, besides being an educator first, working in corporate America for a major company, and doing what I love in terms of coaching, and working in schools that are historically marginalized. But I wasn't happy, right? So
Mm,
I didn't find happiness, so success and happiness, until I hung out my own shingle. And then I could do what I loved and I
right.
could do it for me, right? And so much more joy came from that than I ever had with working for me, working for other people. So, and I didn't have a coach to
Mm.
get me through that. But I imagine, and so share with us, how can coaching help individuals, not just individuals, but teams? How can coaching, what you do, help them achieve their goals?
Yes. Well, I became a certified life coach as a principal. So while I'm leading a school, I took a summer and I became a certified life coach. And what I noticed quickly as I started to life coach individuals is that every individual needs a community. They need a community around them. So as I grew as a leadership coach, coaching a lot of individual leaders, leaders of schools, leaders of other businesses, I grew into what I'm doing now, which is coaching leadership teams. And what I understand is that a team is a community of individuals. So I try my best to first learn the individuals in the team, because the individuals of a team is like your body. You have your arm, you have your leg, you have your head, you have your fingers. Everybody serves a different role. And when those roles are murky or when they're unclear is when we see the breakdown in teams. And so as a coach, I help to uncover that murkiness and help to make everything clear. Because when a team is clear about each other's strengths, when they're clear about each other's roles, and when they can interact with each other um, to press toward the goal, whatever the goal and the mission and the vision of the school is, then what they do trickles all the way down to the students. But if that team is not together and everybody has their own factions and they want their own power and everybody's fighting to satisfy the leader, then what they have stops with them. It does not trickle
Mm.
down. So as a coach, my goal is to make sure whatever the power of the team is, that power is seen, heard, and felt by everyone in the organization.
Wow. Yeah. Trickle down. We're going to come back to that probably multiple times, but
Okay.
trickling down to the kids.
Yeah.
So coaching is not the same as mentoring, traditional mentoring or therapy. Explain to us the difference.
Sure. So I get this all the time. I had one person say, I know what coaching is. It's this. I was like, no. So it is murky. So the difference between me and a counselor or a therapist, to be a counselor or a therapist, you have to have certain criteria, which includes schooling, vast certifications. It's more technical certification and schooling. Like I know for sure counselors have to go to school for 4 years to become a counselor. Therapists have to go through a myriad of certifications and schooling to be a therapist. What counselors do is they help you understand your childhood so
Mm.
you can understand where you came from and how you got to where you're supposed to be. So a counselor's responsibility is to help you see that where you are now did not is not happenstance. It came from somewhere. So and then a therapist really deals with your psycho and mental health. So they
Okay.
dive deep into your psychology of yourself. So myself as a coach, actually coaching is so new. You don't even have to go to school 4 years to be a coach. You don't even have to be certified to be a coach. For example, I remember when Steve Harvey first became a coach, he was like, I'm a coach. I haven't gotten, anybody can say they're a coach, but you get credibility when you're certified. And what a
Right.
coach does is different than a therapist or a counselor. We take you from where you are to where you want to be. So our goal is to help you reach your goal. And that's why I call myself the Destiny Cheer Captain, because I'm going to cheer
Hmm.
you on and hold you accountable to what you said you wanted to do. So that's the difference between the three. And I always tell
Awesome.
people that to have the village. Maybe if you have all three, that's like the best thing.
Synergy. There's
Yes.
some synergy there. So marginalized communities, which is where I have lived my last 25 years in education. Every time I say that number, I start to feel a little old. But working with communities of color, schools, predominantly schools of color, schools that are Title One, and just those programs. Educational equity is something that didn't necessarily have a popular term until about maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But when I think back, I was working towards educational equity back in, I don't know, 2000, 1999, 2000, somewhere around there. So it's been a minute, right? When I started my podcast and coming up with a name for it, which is the Educational Equity Emancipation,
I
I
love
thought about the words of Frederick Douglass. He said, teach a man to read and he will be forever free. And
it.
my mission has always been to teach a child to read, or teach every child to read, and they will be forever free. And it's something that I'm very passionate about, so that educational equity, what we need in order to teach every single child to read, write, think, and calculate on time, on level, is what we're missing in schools far too often. If we have that, then that child is emancipated and they can go on to do whatever they want to do. But we have this system of education where racism and low financial wealth, poverty, and access to resources, all of those things, along with some other things, affect educational equity. So coaching can be used as a tool for empowerment. If you're coaching the leaders for success, there's that trickle down, right? Talk to us about that. How do we empower them to create equity for all children?
Yes, I'm glad you're bringing this up because I grew up in a marginalized community, and I remember my teachers. I remember my principals, and I remember the difference between the ones that showed they cared and the
Mm.
ones who did not give a, you know what.
A
It's a
rat spit.
exactly. I always tell people students are very experienced. By the time they reach sixth grade, oh, they're pros.
Mhm.
They know a good and a bad teacher and a good and bad principal when they see one because they've been in the game for about 6, 7 years at that point.
But you know
So
what? I think some kindergartners even can tell you who's a good teacher and who's a bad teacher.
exactly, they can. Children are very intuitive. And so, as an adult, you can't really hide too much from children. And so, as I think coaching adults to understand themselves better helps them to navigate through what their students need. Um, and understanding that students are human. They're not coming just like you want them to do sit down, be quiet, just watch me talk. No, they need to be developed, they need to be grown. And a lot of educators, I'm just going to be real, they think it's not their job, they think it's the job of the parent.
Parents,
It's
but those are the parents that our system has already failed because they've gone through our school systems K-12. So how can we expect them to do something that we failed to teach them to do?
well, when I hear an educator say that, I don't hear that their parents should do it. What I hear is that I don't know how to do it. That's what I hear as a
Oh,
coach. So when someone says,
I'm hearing the other message.
yes, so they don't know what to do. So they're going to blame. It's blame. And blame is a low form of
Mm,
energy. And we do not need adults with that blame energy on our children. Okay.
no, no.
Yeah, I think coaching helps adults understand their biases, their judgments, and their own strengths towards the students that they serve so that they can be able to unlock the relationship needed and the understanding and care needed to give to students, even if they don't look like you, even if they didn't grow up. They may look like you, but they did not grow up like you. That
Right.
does not give you the right to judge, have bias, treat them differently. And so that's what
Yes.
coaching does. It uncovers all of that that nobody talks about, nobody utters, but it's permeating in the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. So you said without bias, and I define equity for people very simply. It's without bias against or favoritism for, right? So not
Yeah,
showing favoritism for kids who look like you, not
yeah,
showing a bias against kids who don't look like you or think differently than you or whatever that is. No bias against, no favoritism for. We have to make sure that we're meeting the needs of every single child. To make them the best possible self that they can be, right? To be truly emancipated. So if you and I are doing our jobs right, and I know that we are, but if people listen to us and do what we tell them to do, we have the power, that's that creating that superpower in the people who are still doing the work in the school systems, right, on a day-to-day basis. But they will then have that superpower to truly impact every single child that they serve or come into contact with.
yeah. It's how you see yourself. I deal with a lot of leaders who don't understand their own power. It's how you see yourself. If you see yourself as the light walking into the room, you conduct yourself as such. If you see yourself as just a cog in the wheel, you conduct yourself as such. If you see yourself as a
Mm.
puppet, you conduct yourself as such as a leader. So you have
Mm-hmm.
to understand your own power and then be a good steward of that power because you can't abuse it. That then you have to be a good steward of it
I like it.
to be able to affect change and be a change agent in your school and in your community.
That's an awesome way to put it. I like it. Cause I'm like visualizing, there are some leaders, they walk in the room and the kids just go crazy. They gravitate towards these people,
I
right?
do miss,
Because they know, even the kindergartners,
yeah,
right? The kids know.
they know.
So if we create those superpower people, the way it impacts our children and our educators as well, because nobody no as a former classroom teacher, I can say I never wanted to work for the principal who conducted himself like or herself like a cog in the wheel, right? They were just there to carry out whatever mandate or whatever was going on. They didn't really care. They didn't care about the kids. And that was my problem in education. Not a bad problem. I cared about the kids.
Yeah,
My whole thing, you asked, how do you define yourself? I am a fierce advocate for equity for every single child, and particularly those that are marginalized. And that grew in me as a parent and a PTA mom. So when people who are charged with caring and educating our children don't conduct themselves that way, I'm like a mama grizzly, right?
yes,
That's what, yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. So that's me, the fierce advocate for children.
yeah.
Huh. Okay. So you've helped me
And
define
remember
myself a
when
little bit
people
better.
are like that, when they just had discontent, they're angry. It's because they're traumatized. You're talking about trauma informed leadership. We have leaders that are traumatized that are leading whole communities. And that's like the
Yeah.
worst thing.
And
To
that's
see
not
a
good.
traumatized leader leading a community is the worst thing. So how do we turn that trauma into healing? That's my role as a leadership coach. I need to heal the leaders so they can heal the community. It's a trickle down.
Yeah. So trauma, good segue to talking about the obstacles that we have to overcome, particularly as people of color. There are systemic barriers, there are inequalities that stretch back to pre-K for us. Those things have impacted our education and probably inform how we coach and how we go about coaching. So that means that for all people of color, and I know you said that your clients are predominantly women of color, Black
Yes,
women, I believe,
yes.
um, that we know what those barriers are because, well, I've been at this a whole lot longer than you have. I say you're still a spring chicken. You said
You look like a spring
my
chicken.
baby is my baby is 31 and yours is 7. So there's that difference there. But how
Really
do
good,
you
girl.
help them? Thank you. I'll take it. I'll take it. Those systemic barriers. even in your journey to get to your doctorate, what do you say to people that you're coaching about addressing those and getting beyond them, overcoming them, blowing them out of the way? What do you say?
Ooh, yeah. My favorite quote, and I don't know who did this quote. I have no idea, but I used to have it on my.
Somebody will Google it and tell us.
Yes, okay, good. I used to have it on my doors of principle. It's called "It's the struggle that makes you great."
Mm,
But as I look back at that quote, I'm like, wait a minute. Is it really the struggle that makes me great? Or is it community that makes me great? Like, I used to like that quote because I was often alone in my educational journey. I was the
mhm,
first one to go to college. I was the first, I got my master's alone. I went through most of my doctorate degree alone. And I'm realizing, no, I'm questioning the struggle piece. Is it the struggle that makes me
mhm,
great? Or is it more complex than that? And so I think collaboration is the way to go. It made me feel sometimes when I read research that makes me feel good, I'm like, it's right. Because I feel good about this technical research. And I read about a
mhm,
researcher who they followed Asian and Black kids in a gifted and talented program. And he noticed that the Black children were not doing as well as the Asian children. He said, how can this be? They're all intelligent. They're all in gifted and talented. I need to shadow them. He shadowed them, and guess what he found? He found that the Asian students came together as a community to study for the test. But the Black students studied all by themselves. The biggest obstacle is not that the struggle is making you great. Loneliness will bring you
mhm.
trauma. That you can do it. We can do it lonely. We're strong people. But is that the right way? Is that the right struggle? I'd rather struggle with my friends, to be honest, even as an adult. I'd rather
Yeah.
struggle through this doctorate with someone else. It gives me joy, but it also makes me determined and disciplined, and it makes me like keep going through all of the struggle. So I don't know if it's the struggle that makes you great or who you're going through the struggle with that makes you great. Maybe we should change it to that. But I really believe that especially for Black people and people of color, we need to approach education in a collaborative way. Stop studying by yourself. Stop thinking you can do it all by yourself. It's not required. Doing it by yourself is not required. You have to get with others and have to lean on others and ask for help. And for us, sometimes that's difficult.
Well, I think about what the norm in education, and I know I did a podcast on this not long ago, but I don't know what the episode number was. But it's about engagement and how teachers see children and their behaviors. Um, and I've had primarily white teachers say to me that like their Black kids are not engaged in class.
Mm-hmm.
I've had teachers say that their Asian students, they don't think they're cheating, but it's
Mm-hmm.
that community, right? Because culturally for them, there is that strong community network. It's your responsibility to work within your community to help others. Black kids not listening, we talk. Culturally, we talk. We
Yeah.
talk to understand. That's what we do.
Yes.
And so it's not that they are not paying attention. It's that they're making sense of content through engaging with one another. And so these cultural norms that we have very often can do some damage that we're not thinking about. I think about my own journey as you talked about that research study with mentally gifted children or gifted children. Back in the dark ages, it was called the Mentally Gifted Minors Program, um, way back.
Yep.
And I was the only Black person in my school that
Wow.
was in that gifted program. So probably fifth grade, but definitely sixth grade through ninth grade. And in 7, 8, and 9 at junior high school, I was in that track. There were like 30 of us in that track, and we were literally in the same classroom for 5. I think the only periods we didn't have together might have been like PE, but most of us were in PE together. But back then, girls and boys didn't. You didn't do PE together. Those of us who had band and whether or not we took French or Spanish, that was pretty much it. The rest of the time we were together. So 5, 6 periods a day, 3 years in a row. There were only two other people of color in that track with me, and they were both Japanese men, boys. Seventh grade, you're still a boy, you're not a man. But that was it. So I did not have a community of color to network with. I did a lot by my own, but I built community, and that made it a little bit easier. My master's degree, I know I did that all by myself. I didn't have a community there, but in my doctoral program, we sort of found each other, me, an Asian woman, a white woman, a black man, and a white man. And we stuck together. We created that community. And yes, that struggle was definitely real.
Yeah.
The struggle didn't make us strong. We were able to help each other, and not that, and our topics were nowhere near the same, but we were able to lift each other up and support each other and be there in that community to help one another.
Yes.
So is it that we need to put a little more work maybe as individuals into building communities so that we have someone else to go through this with?
Absolutely. Communities change the world. I have seen communities stop racist acts. I've seen communities create something new. I've seen communities politically shut negative things down. Community is where it's at. And for a long time, I was waiting for somebody to give me permission to build community instead of understanding I don't have to wait for anyone. I can create a community, and you can start small. A lot of people are lonely in this world, especially after 2020. Loneliness is commonplace. But if I understand my agency and my power in creating and building a community, I'll reach out. I'll reach out in a way that satisfies me. I can reach out to a neighbor just as well as I can reach out to someone who has a Facebook group. To your comfortability, how can you create and build a network of people around yourself, a village around
Mm-hmm.
yourself of like-minded people who are maybe going through the same situation or have the same interest as you to help you navigate through. That is something that's really novel to a lot of students, especially African American students.
Yeah. I want to stay on the racism track for just a second. I think about my work in DEI and in any really in the any first day training as we start to get immersed into understanding what is diversity, what is equity, um, what is inclusion, and what is anti-racism, and
Mhm.
why implicit bias and racism is so important to understand and unpack and see what exactly systemic inequity does to us as communities. That is not easy. It is hard work, especially for white people, because it's not
Yeah.
something they've ever had to address. I always find it interesting. One thing I ask people to do is identify themselves racially as part of an early activity. Black folks, Latino folk, Hispanic, my various Asian communities, nobody ever has a problem saying, I'm Black, I'm African American, I'm Chinese, I'm Japanese, I'm Filipino, Filipina. I am all these things. The group that has difficulty identifying themselves is white people. And
Mhm.
I think that's because we have had to work through so much oppression and harm and damage that we know who we are, right? And we understand where we are in this system. But the real growth and challenge is for white people to understand who they are and what their role is in that system. So what I do is start to unpack that. What you would do on your side is to help people through it. I imagine.
Yeah.
I know you said you do you have any white clients you work with, or with teams? Are you getting some white people that you're working with?
Yes, I actually do. I actually do. And that's what I immediately start with that conversation about race because I have to set the tone for coaching. And that's actually how I build relationships fast and how I assess where a white person is with race and where they work and how they feel about their community. I start to ask a lot of questions. And what I find is that because of the privilege of not really having to it's a privilege in not accepting that I'm white, even though whiteness was created historically, like maybe a century
Hmm.
ago, but before that you were either Irish or you were Italian.
Right.
But then
Right.
then now it's just everybody just white. And I have
Yeah.
consciously accepted that I'm white, but it's to a certain amount of shame or denial that I won't say I'm white. And so
Yeah.
that is where we have to start with that just little teeny acknowledgement that you are who you are and I am what I am. And there's no position that you have to take. You just have to take a stance about
Yeah.
yourself. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
find that same issue. Mhm.
Yeah. And understanding the difference between what they're feeling is really an anguish, right? I would say guilt is when you did something. Anguish is when you feel bad about something that's been done, right?
Yeah.
That something exists. So helping people work through that anguish because we have to in order to get to equity for our children in schools, back to that trickle down effect.
Mhm.
So there's an intersection between what we do that's very complementary. We know that all the research says that coaching, especially coaching in the job setting. So for me with reading, it was side by side coaching in the classroom right next to you while you're teaching. For you, especially leadership coaching, are you coaching them in their place of work, in their leadership position, or is it all over?
So historically, I have been coaching leaders for years. I've been a mentor, principal. I have been a leadership coach. Right now, I'm doing virtual and in person. It just depends on what the needs are and comfortability. But for me, it's no different. For me, coaching virtually and coaching side by side is no different because through coaching, I have conversations, and whether I'm sitting right next to you or virtual, I have conversations with you to help uncover what your issues are that you're not saying. It's like the song beneath the words. Because a lot of
Mm,
my leaders, they are really good at talking about tasks. I got to do this, I got to do this, and then this is due, and then I got to create this document. And then I'll say, but how are you doing?
mm,
And so just uncovering the internal anguish, I like that word, the internal anguish or the internal issues is my job. And sometimes it's very difficult in the work setting to get to that place. So I always strive to uh, build the relationship really fast so I can really quickly get down to what is happening with that leader internally within themselves so I can go there because most leaders are leaders because they're really good at the task. However, to change the system and most leaders don't see themselves as change agents. But in order to change the system, you have to do some internal work that's deep that most people are not willing to do. So as a coach, that is my challenge.
mm. It also means that I'm imagining that you talk to people about self care.
Mhm. Especially
Yeah, that takes us to a happy place, right? I I have what I call self-care Fridays. I try to take because I travel a lot and people always say, "Wow, that must be great. You get to travel, you fly all over, you stay in hotels, you get." It's like,
they think it's
yeah, I have to
glorious.
go to airports. It's
It's
and
not
it's
as
not. It's
glorious.
not. It's not as glorious as people think. It's hard on your body
It is.
to not be in your own space. I always feel there's something about when I say it was almost like thank God for COVID. I actually got to sleep in my own bed. I
I said
was
the same thing.
home, yeah, more in during that period of shutdown than I had been in 15, 16 years. And it was like, wow, this is what it's like to be at home. It was wonderful. But I know that when we're doing difficult work, and if you are a leader in a school system, you are doing difficult work. If you're a classroom teacher, you're
All the
doing
time.
difficult work. I
Yes.
think about I have listeners that are school board members. You're doing difficult work. I
Absolutely.
live in Houston. I think about what's going on in Houston ISD right now and the difficult work that leadership there is being faced with a state takeover. You have to find that time for self care.
It's very
So I will take I will take my Fridays. My assistant will book all my, facials, massages, all that good stuff to care for me so that I have that time and space to pour back into myself because I'm always pouring out to other people. What do
Yes.
you tell? And I tell my people, especially when I'm doing a day one DEI training, because it's going to be emotionally draining,
Yes.
especially for white people.
Yes.
Because we're going to sit in some stuff. And I said that you are going to sit in some stuff. You are going to feel some discomfort. I am not going to apologize for it. That's what's necessary for you to learn and recognize the experience of other people. But when this day is over, go home and care for yourself. Spend some time in reflection,
I love that.
journal, take a bubble bath with a bottle of champagne and a
I love that.
Lifetime movie. That's my thing, right? What do you tell your people about self care and reflection?
Well, the thing about self care and work is this. Um, Nobody really tells you to take care of yourself at work. And even if I say you need a break, if the culture of where I work says that not really, you need a break, but yeah, go do that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to actually create the boundary of self-care in a work environment. Otherwise, the work environment is unforgiving. It will keep asking you and asking you and asking you. And you find yourself going home at night, you're still doing the work and feeling that like that is what you're supposed to do. But most of us are salaried. We don't get paid overtime. So just know
Mm-hmm.
that all of that extra work you're doing at home on the weekends for work is free. It's
Mm-hmm.
free. And you have earned your days off. I tell my you have earned your days off. You get days off by hours clocked in. That's how they determine your days off. So you've earned
Yeah.
them. So you have to create the boundaries and take those days. I always tell leaders to take one mental health day a month, usually a
Mm.
Friday. So you can have 1 3 day and just take that mental health day and go get that bubble bath and that wine and watch your Lifetime movies
Yeah.
and replenish yourself, because a leader that's burnt out is good for nobody and your
Yeah.
health is in jeopardy. And I see leaders who break down really fast. You'll be surprised how many leaders are alcoholic, they have back problems, they have mental anxiety, they drop dead on their way to work. These are leaders of
Mm-hmm.
schools because
Mm-hmm.
nobody is making them stop and do self care. And guess what? Nobody ever will. So you have to take the time as a leader to create the boundary. Say, know what? Force quit. Just like you do on your computer where you say force quit. I want to take a force
Mm-hmm.
quit and I'm going to stop and I'm going to replenish myself. And this is good. When I do this, I'm doing this for my community. I'm doing this for my students so I can get back in the game with that high energy again and not show up burnt down, depleted, yelling at everybody. That's not the way to go. And so self
Yeah.
care is one of my main things that I do talk to my clients about.
Yeah. You mentioned mental health. Well, two things, mental health and untimely death. Um, the suicide rate for teachers is abnormally high.
Mm,
The rate of mental illness, mental health issues, not, like depression primarily in teachers is abnormally high.
mm,
And when you said death, it made me think of two people right away. There was an amazing woman that I worked with in educational publishing. She was the sales rep. I loved working with her because I was a consultant. I went where they wanted me. Her territory was the Caribbean. So I
mm.
loved it when she wanted me. I always say that was like the best duty ever. Oh, a week in the Cayman Islands? No problem, honey. I am there. Oh, a week in the Virgin Islands? No problem. I am there.
It's self
Um,
care.
yeah, that was great self care because they were always on island time. So I'm in my corporate head. It's like, nope, training goes to 4 o'clock. On island time, they were done at 2. So by
Oh,
two
I love
fifteen, 2:30, I'm in the swimming pool. But the last time I worked with her, we had been together in the Virgin Islands for like 5 days working together. We went out at night, had dinner, just enjoyed, that a little bit of work life balance or work life integration, really. And we left there separately. We met again in Indianapolis at a meeting, an annual meeting for the company. And 2 days into that, they found her dead in her hotel room.
it. Oh, I'm so sorry.
She had not engaged in self care.
Oh,
And it hurt to think not just that she was away from her family,
mm,
she was at a work event. Um, but beyond that, and the couple of hours that they gave us to meet with a counselor, to pull ourselves together or whatever it was, that train kept right on rolling. They were back on schedule that evening.
Yep.
And so I remind people that while you feel you are so important to what is happening in that place, when you're gone,
They just
they're
put
still
me
going to
back
keep
in.
going, right? That train is going to keep rolling. That school is going to continue to operate, but you will have deprived yourself and your family of your time. And so taking care of yourself
It's paramount.
is so critically important. Do what you have to do to care for you so that you can continue to care for other people.
Yeah, nobody on their deathbed says, "I wish I spent more time at work."
There you
Nobody,
go.
nobody says
Yeah.
that. So yeah, we have to
Yeah.
make some hard decisions and make some changes so we can be there with our family and with our children's children and live long, productive lives. And you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to do it if you're doing unsustainable things like just going and going and going without breaks.
Right. And I do say the work in this political environment that we're in, those people who are involved in work about implicit bias in their schools, in anti-racism in their schools, any equity work in their schools, and advocating for the children in their schools community, it is
Ooh,
hard work, and you have to care for yourself. So, that's my side on the DEI. On your side on the coaching, I know you are advocating for that.
yes,
We're going to
absolutely.
make sure that we keep those two things rolling together.
Yep.
That was a bit of a bird walk, but sometimes you have to go down that rabbit hole, um, because it's important for people to understand.
Yeah.
So I have a question that I ask every guest. I always share that my shiro, or one of my shiros, and I swear I think it was probably when I was 6 years old, I learned who Dr. Angela Davis was. She was but a young child herself at the time, but I have always respected her work and what she has done, not just for Black folks, but for women. A lot of people don't realize her work, for
Yes.
women. But she said, I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. So, my
Yeah.
question to each guest is always, what is the one thing you cannot accept? And what can the people who are listening to us today do to support that change?
I love that question. I love that question. I love Angela Davis too. Um, hmm. I would say that the one thing that I cannot accept is anyone that stops anybody else from being free. Um, Multifaceted. I'm Black in America, and I have done my due diligence on my own history. It is an atrocity. It is, I can't even describe a word that describes the feeling of just the bondage that Black people have been in for decades, centuries,
400 years.
centuries, right?
Yeah.
So when my freedom is blocked or someone else's freedom is blocked, I don't even like anybody else's freedom being
Yeah.
taken away. And not just the freedom to be and do what you want to do and free to have your own identity and do, but also the freedom to make mistakes. In the workplace, do I have the freedom to make a mistake? Do I have the freedom to mess up and screw up and not feel like my livelihood is in jeopardy? Because about 80% of Black women are the heads of their families. So I
Mm-hmm.
have to always make a family decision. And so, do I have the freedom to mess up and you be okay with it? Because I'm sure when you mess up, it's okay. Because I'm sure of it. So I feel
Mm.
like what I can't accept is people who are blocking or stopping or hindering someone's freedom, freedom to be themselves and freedom to make mistakes. And I want the people who are watching to do your due diligence, especially if you are a white person. Do your due diligence in ensuring that you are not a blocker to somebody else's freedom to be a human. If you can do that, then we good.
And on that note, Just a reminder, folks, if you're hearing this for the first time on an audio podcast, all episodes will be coming to you first via live stream, fingers crossed, on my YouTube channel, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, check down in the show notes for that link. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Of course, always please share, spread the word. My guest today has been Lakeisha Covert of Success My Way Academy. We're going to put her contact information down in the notes as well, her social media, her YouTube channel. Subscribe to her YouTube channel and follow her on social. Lakeisha, thanks for joining me. It really has been an adventure today.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed the time.
And to you equity warriors out there, if you or someone you know is an everyday equity warrior doing amazing things, please let me know. You can YouTube chat me. You can DM me on LinkedIn, leave a voicemail at 3epodcast.com. I will continue to bring you awesome and inspiring guests, and maybe you or someone you know should be one of them. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and as always, don't worry about the things you cannot change. Change the things you can no longer accept. And I'll see you next time.